We're making the dish called red rice, is what we call it in South Carolina. And it's basically like a rice jollof or pilaf. Same thing, only it's red, made with tomato sauce. So I'm gonna measure out 1 cup. Well, I learned to cook from observation, lots of observation. And then when I got married, I had to learn to cook because my husband wanted food. He wanted hot food. He wanted home cooked meals. And I grew up making myself lots of sandwiches. Got married, sandwich days were over. And we'll wait until that comes to a boil and we'll put our rice in. So in the meantime, we can go ahead and mix the sauce that's going in. People had a lot of children back then so that they could work the farm. And, you know, the more you had, the more hands you had to help you work the farm, which, you know, many families were sharecropping families. So they had a whole lot of children so they could have a whole lot of help. So you had to feed them something, and you fed them staples. We often had meals that would have 2 starches, is what we call them. Starch-based vegetables like potatoes. We might have potato salad and rice, or potato salad and I don't know, something else that was like a heavy substance, so that you fill them up because you didn't have a lot of meat. I'm trying to dilute this tomato paste so that I can mix it in with the rice once we put it together for baking, because that's really what we're going to end up doing, is baking the rice. I grew up in the upstate and we ate lots of potatoes. In the lower part of the state is where they produced a lot of rice on a lot of the plantations. So that's what they were accustomed to eating more of. And we didn't. We didn't produce rice in the upstate. We grew potatoes, you know. And so that's the difference. That I went to college in the Low Country down in Orangeburg, and I think we had rice every day at college. And I kept saying to myself, what do you eat it with? Women in my family, they did all the cooking. And again, I probably didn't see men cook anything except for my brother makes spaghetti. And I went to visit him one day and I thought, he says, you have to eat some. I made this. So he made spaghetti and then he fries fish. So that's a big thing in the South. Men fry the fish because they use those big pots. So the weight and then the oil gets in it and gets heavy. So men do all the fish frying now. And I don't know who here has seen fish with heads on, but that's what I have. And so what I did, another thing that we used to do in our culture, even with chicken, with fish and chicken, we put it in water and put the salt in the water. So we don't generally put it on the fish or on the chicken. We let it soak in salt. And what my grandmother used to say is that it takes the amount that it needs. Actually, she made everything, and her reasoning was that they could not afford to waste food teaching us how to cook. So you had to learn on your own. I mean, you could watch and maybe do simple steps. You know, like she may let you, batter something. But cooking a meal by yourself, that didn't happen. When I was in college, I went home, I took a friend home, and I wanted to impress her. So I wanted to make macaroni salad. And my grandma said, okay. And I made it, and it was horrible. It was horrible. I mean, gaggingly horrible. And when I finished, we couldn't eat it. So we sat there, my friend and I, looking at each other. And so she came in and asked, how did it go? And I said, it's okay. I said, you want to taste it? And she said, okay. And she tasted it and she said, darling, you can throw that away. She said, I won't punish you that way. It was that bad. It was that bad that she said, you can throw it away. We used to eat, like, a whole fish would probably be about that size because we ate small fish. And often it was like fresh catch. Somebody got it from the river, that wasn't far away. And so when they'd order, say like if they went to a place that had fresh fish, I remember hearing my mother ask for a fish about the size of her hand because that's what they liked. Well, we learned to like what we had, and we had the kind of family, if you didn't eat that, you ate crackers, because there was no store. We lived in a rural area, so there was no store next door. There was no buying cakes and candies and stuff like that. If you didn't eat what you had at home, you didn't eat. Yes, every day we ate together. We did. Now, my grandfather got off work at 2 o'clock, so he would come home and he may eat separately, but the rest of us ate together, because if you didn't, you might get left out, seriously. If you were hungry, you generally ate with everybody else so that you would get your fair share. And that's kind of the way it was. My grandmother would make your plate, and or if it was, say, like a Sunday dinner or something, we sometimes would pass the starches. But the meat, we always got it served to us. So, yeah, we ate together, and we, as I told you, that's what began the meal, was prayer. The technique is part of the process, but it's all in the hands, and so that's what she used to tell me, that it's in your hands. It's in the memory too, but it's also in the hands. And so when we make things like biscuits, it took me years to learn to make them, because you may have the right ingredients for biscuits, but it may take years for them to come out right, because it's all in the touch and the feel. And once you get the feel of what it's supposed to feel like every single time, you really don't even have to measure too much anymore, because that's what it's all in the feel. We had choices of what people were growing in their gardens. Those were our choices of foods. So peas, what they call pigeon peas, black-eyed peas, green beans, string beans, we call them string beans, but green beans, those were the things that were in either relatives or neighbors' gardens, and that's what we had to choose from. And so we ate much of what the side dishes that we ate, and even some of the meats were because of what people had in their garden and what we were growing. Like my grandfather was the marksman for killing pigs or hogs. So he was the guy who, if he shot, during the winter when they killed that kind of stuff, cattle or whatever, and sows, whenever they were going to do it, they called him because he got it right every time. And so there was a place right here in the forehead where they shot the pig or the hog or whatever. Well, I should be looking at you, right? That's why they would get him. So as a result, he got a lot of free meat because he was the shooter. Same thing with chickens. We had our own chickens in the backyard. So whenever and I don't even want to talk about how we got our chickens ready for eating. I was a little girl, and honestly, I used to play with the chickens like they were my pets. And so I didn't realize that some days the chickens we were eating were the chickens I had played with. I just didn't know. And one day my biological mom came to visit, and they said, oh, have May to do it. She's really, and I saw her take the chicken. Yeah, I shouldn't probably tell you this, but she took the chicken by the neck and twisted it and spun him around like that, and then took his body and just pushed it this way so it would spin. I ran screaming, crying. It was devastating to me, because that was my friend Sue. My grandmother, I think, though, was the one who She was kind of, she liked, joviality, I guess you'd say. She liked the laughter, and so she liked having fun. We sat around her a lot. She made things like that I see in the stores now for big prices, like gingerbread. She made homemade gingerbread. And she made homemade sticky buns. Always kept an apple pie in the freezer. So when we got together as a large group, the women we had this tradition where at midnight on one of the nights, we'd all sleep on the floor, on the carpet. And at midnight, we'd get up and have apple pie and ice cream. So it was fun. It was fun. Okay, so the neighbors, they lived not directly in front of us, but the house that was diagonally in front of us was a witch doctor. And his name was Mr. Bob. I better watch my mouth. Okay, so Mr. Bob, I'll just say. Well, he had customers that came usually on Friday, but sometimes on Thursday, and they stayed in their cars until he saw them. And they came from all over the United States. So I guess my grandfather got an idea because that was a time when African Americans and whites ate at separate restaurants. So we didn't have fast food restaurants. Well, we did, but they were segregated. So I guess my grandfather got an idea, and we started making sandwiches for those people and selling sandwiches out of our back door. It was during a time when Mountain Dew was developed. It was, I think, the year that Mountain Dew was put on the market. That was the year he tasted Mountain Dew, liked it, and thought, this will go good with sandwiches for the people who are their customers. And we made a little mini fortune because this went on for years. And because the people came every weekend of the year, they came. And I don't know if they had appointments. Some people came, they just dropped in. But he was the witch doctor who made things happen for these people. He even had repeat customers. So that was our business, for a while. All right, guys, I think this rice is just about done. Let's think of a dish like potato salad. Two people can use the same ingredients for potato salad and they come out tasting differently. And it has to do with the technique that they use. For instance, I have an aunt in New Jersey who everybody wants her to make the potato salad. Someone else will make it with the same exact ingredients. She can stand there and tell them what to put in it. It does not taste as good as hers. I just think it has to do with the process that you use, that you perfect, and you do it that way every time. Even if you have the feel in your hands for how you're actually stirring the mixture of potato salad, it just comes out the same way. And it tastes just as good because, I don't know, there's something about the way you put the ingredients together. It's all about the feel. It's in the hand.